Good intentions occupy an honored place in Christian moral language. They appear to reveal the condition of the heart, and the heart matters. A person who sincerely wants to feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, protect children, welcome strangers, or heal the sick appears morally superior to the person who remains cold towards suffering. That judgment contains part of the truth. It also creates a dangerous loophole. Good intentions often excuse incompetence. Once a person has announced a compassionate goal, criticism begins to sound cruel. Questions about cost, method, knowledge, incentives, or consequences are treated as distractions from the purity of the cause. The person who cares is granted moral authority, while the person who asks whether the plan will work is suspected of lacking mercy. This reversal produces disaster. A surgeon may love his patient and still kill him through ignorance. A charity may care deeply about a poor community and still destroy its local economy. A church may want to preserve a troubled marriage and still return a battered woman to an abusive husband. A government may intend to rescue vulnerable people and still create incentives that place thousands more in danger. Warm motives do not cool the wreckage. Incompetence can harm people as thoroughly as malice. The victim rarely receives much comfort from learning that the person responsible meant well. A collapsed bridge remains collapsed. A child placed in an unsafe home remains endangered. A family encouraged to take on debt it cannot repay still faces ruin. The good intention belongs to the helper. The consequence belongs to someone else. This is why charity requires judgment. Charity seeks the genuine good of another person. It cannot be reduced to feeling sympathy, expressing concern, or performing a visible act of generosity. The charitable act must be suited to the actual needs of the recipient. That requires knowledge. It requires attention. It requires an honest understanding of cause and effect. A person who wishes to do good in a serious domain must first cultivate competence in that domain. This principle sounds severe because modern culture has trained people to view sincerity as a substitute for skill. We praise enthusiasm before examining ability. We reward moral language before measuring results. Organizations produce moving photographs, emotional appeals, and carefully arranged stories about their mission. The failures are hidden in reports few people read. The donor leaves feeling righteous. The recipient lives with the experiment. Christian charity should reject this vanity. The purpose of mercy is to help the suffering person, not to provide the giver with a flattering reflection of himself. A charitable program should therefore be judged by what it does, rather than by what it claims to desire. That judgment must include technical questions. A person who wants to help addicts should understand addiction, withdrawal, relapse, treatment methods, family pressure, criminal markets, and the incentives created by public aid. Compassion alone will not reveal whether giving money, housing, medication, supervision, or compulsory treatment is the proper response. Each case may require a different answer. A person who wants to help the poor should understand rent, debt, wages, taxes, household formation, transportation, education, and local labor conditions. Handing out money may relieve an immediate burden. It may also feed dependency, fraud, or predatory businesses. Refusing aid may appear harsh. It may also force a necessary decision that prevents deeper ruin. A person who wants to work with migrants should understand immigration law, asylum rules, labor markets, trafficking networks, housing pressures, border control, public finance, and assimilation. A church volunteer who knows none of these things may still possess a generous heart. That heart does not qualify him to design national policy. Prayer cannot replace training. Sincerity cannot replace discipline. A Bible verse cannot repair a badly designed program. The Christian tradition has never taught that moral action consists of intention alone. Prudence governs action by connecting noble ends to fitting means. A person may desire justice while choosing a method that creates injustice. He may desire peace while rewarding aggression. He may desire mercy while protecting a man from the consequences that might finally bring him to repentance. Discernment asks what this person needs, what this act will produce, and what hidden incentives are being created. These questions can feel uncomfortable because they force the charitable person to admit the limits of his understanding. He may discover that his preferred solution fails. He may learn that experienced practitioners disagree with him. He may find that the person asking for help has lied, manipulated others, or refused every reasonable condition. Charity does not require gullibility. A person who repeatedly gives money to an addict after learning that the money purchases drugs is no longer innocent of the outcome. A church that repeatedly restores an embezzler to financial authority without safeguards cannot hide behind forgiveness. An aid organization that continues a failed program because admitting failure would injure fundraising has placed its reputation above the people it claims to serve. At some point, ignorance becomes chosen. That choice carries moral weight. People who seek authority over the lives of others accept a duty to become capable. A social worker, pastor, teacher, physician, policymaker, or charity director cannot plead good intentions after refusing to study the work. The greater the power, the greater the duty to understand what one is doing. This is especially true in politics. Public officials spend other people's money, impose rules on people who may disagree, and create consequences across entire communities. Their errors spread farther than the mistakes of a private citizen. A failed personal act of charity may harm one household. A failed public program may harm millions. Yet political rhetoric regularly treats compassion as proof of competence. A proposal is called humane, caring, generous, or merciful. Those labels settle the argument before anyone has examined whether the policy can be administered, funded, enforced, or sustained. The language of virtue becomes a curtain drawn across the machinery. Then the machinery catches fire. Competence requires patience before action. The person who wants to help may need to study for years, work beneath experienced people, learn the limits of his knowledge, and observe how systems respond to pressure. He may need to measure results and abandon methods he once defended. He may need to admit that the person who sounded less compassionate understood the problem better. Humility begins when the desire to appear good yields to the duty to become useful. The Good Samaritan offers a model of practical mercy. He did more than feel sorrow for the wounded man. He recognized the injuries, treated them, moved the victim to safety, found lodging, paid the cost, and arranged continued care. His compassion possessed form. It passed through knowledge into action. He did not stand beside the road announcing his concern. Christians should seek that kind of charity. It is disciplined, informed, patient, and answerable to results. It knows that every serious act of mercy touches a field of knowledge. Medicine has its craft, law has its craft, teaching has its craft, relief work has its craft, government has its craft. The amateur may enter these fields, but he must enter as a student before behaving as a master. Good intentions are morally valuable because they direct the will toward a worthy end. They remain incomplete until joined to judgment. A person who wishes to do good must care enough to learn how. He must care enough to be corrected. He must care enough to stop when his methods cause harm. The world contains enough disasters built by men who felt virtuous while building them. Charity deserves better hands.